Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files here on the J Free 906 podcast channel. And we are back to talk about Expedition Bigfoot. Mike, Owen, and Shannon Ewald with us. How are you guys doing?
It's -5 wind chill here, Jeff. Just saying.
Same. I don't know what the wind chill is, but it's cold here. It's single digit cold. What about
How you doing, Jeff? Yeah.
Oh, well, it's 47, I think. 47. It's cold.
Degrees? Actual degrees. 47 total degrees. Really? What do you do with them all?
Bathing suit weather is what he's telling us.
Yeah. Well, you do see the guys running by with shorts and they have like a hoodie on, but they're wearing shorts and stuff. And it's like, well, anyway. It's supposed to get up to sunny and 50 tomorrow, and then this weekend supposed to get up into the 60s and sunny. So,
oh, you're bragging now.
Wow,
yeah. You can cut that out.
Now you're just showing off.
Well, I'm going metal detecting on Saturday. Yeah, going out with Mark Hoover. We're going to do some metal detecting, so that's going to be fun. So, but yeah, so I'm sorry that but that's why I came down here, because back home in Pennsylvania it's like 18. So
yeah.
Enjoy.
Very cool.
Oh, I know, right? So anyway,
we're
folks,
just jealous.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. And Mike and I, we kind of got blindsided a little bit because of the fact that we heard out of nowhere, hey, we got our season 6 is starting on the 22nd, and we're like, wait, what? Expedition Bigfoot season 6. We're like, okay, we got to talk about this, right? So,
they kept that quiet.
They really did.
I mean, there was no hint whatsoever.
No.
And out of the blue, boom, there it is.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So we're going to be covering the episodes going on the season. Have no idea how many episodes there will be, but we're going to be covering them anyway. Now, we're not going to do them every Thursday night. And I almost didn't do the first one tonight after last night's episode, but we decided to kick it off anyway. Might be kind of short tonight because, we had a feeling that they might spend a lot of their time discussing, kind of where they were, where they are now, and additions to the team and some of the ideas of what they're looking at getting into this year, but no real experiment content type stuff, which is kind of what we got. But still, I thought it was well worth talking about tonight. So,
unless you're me, in which all of it, because I've never watched the show before last night, was completely just like, what? What do you mean? What? Constantly. So it was brand new and interesting and exciting for me.
Yeah, well, we expect you to ask a lot of questions as we go along tonight.
Good, because I will.
Now, Matthew, he's kind of a Bigfoot guy, right? I mean,
he is. My husband very much was like, "Yeah, of course, you didn't know this." I'm like, no, I didn't. No, he didn't say it like that, but he may well have. I was like, "What do you mean they have nests? What?" Like, I don't understand. Still, I don't know how much longer I can get away with being completely ignorant to Bigfoot now at this point.
Well, we know that, and it's great to have you here, because that's exactly, there's a lot of people in that same situation that are not really familiar with the whole Bigfoot legend and the lore behind it, and some of the science that's been applied to trying to find this elusive cryptid out there. And that's kind of what they call it, a cryptid, or him, and along with things like Loch Ness Monster and things like that, skinwalkers. Yeah, I'm wearing my Skinwalker Ranch shirt or hoodie tonight because it's cold. So, but
I got my Bigfoot.
I know. What does this say?
Finally, it says, dude, I'm right here. Brian Head, Utah. My kids thought it was funny because they're like, Dad, they'll think you're Bigfoot. You're hairy. I'm like, I'm not that hairy. Stop it. Stop.
Well, it's going to be really good having your perspective tonight here, and ask all the questions that you would like of us tonight, Shannon. That's really good to have you here. It really is. I know I've missed talking with you and Mike, so I'm really happy to have you guys here. And folks, we're really happy to have you here with us as well, so we can go through this together. And we hope that you will. I see already that there's a lot of activity in the chat, so please feel free to ask questions. Linda, as always, is doing her hard work down there trying to keep track of everything, and she'll be popping up messages as we go along. She popped one up earlier and I missed it. I'm not in my regular studio, so I have to look over here to actually see your faces and to see the chat pop up at the bottom that she puts on there. So, there it is. It's on in Canada the same night as you. Oh, that's cool, Tom.
Nice.
Very good. Yeah. So, all right. So, like I always say, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you like the content of the show we do here for you tonight, please give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot in all the algorithms and all that sort of thing. We will not be doing a Expedition Bigfoot next week. We're going to probably combine a couple episodes together and review them like that. So look for us in about 2 weeks from tonight to do one for episodes 2 and 3, and as we go along. So, because I've got some other things we're working on down here as well. Treasure hunting things happening down here in Florida for those of you who like the lost treasures. So, and of course, we're doing the Curse of Oak Island on Wednesday nights. So, and I promised my wife that I would not be podcasting every single night that we're down here. So I got to keep it to a limit. So, all right, let's jump into it, shall we? So the Expedition Bigfoot season 6, episode number 1. And one of the things that I've noticed right off the bat, they have a new team member, at least for, this season getting started. Got Bryce, Dr. Maria Mayer, and Russell Acord. I have talked to Russell. He said he would join us at some point along the season here. So that's good news. And they have a new gentleman joining them, another man who is a bushcraft, that they call it, bushcraft expert and researcher, Biko Wright. Now, I heard that Biko, I saw some chat. I did not know this because I don't watch the show alone. I haven't. But Biko, I guess, was on that show. Did you guys watch that show at all? Have you seen that?
Which one?
Alone, where they put them out in the wilderness by themselves and they have to figure out how to survive.
I know the show. I didn't see it.
Yeah. Well, apparently he was on it. I don't know what season, but I saw some chat going on the social medias today talking about Biko. So, but he seems like a really good fit. So after watching last night, he does. He seems like he's a really good. Oh, I love Alone. All right, Seth loves that show. So you've probably seen Biko before. Yep. So I hadn't, but anyway, yeah, he seemed like a really good fit. Seemed like he knows what he's doing. And so we'll see how that goes. And of course, and this is one of the things that for you, Shannon, and for those of you out there who may not already know, Miss Jane Goodall, who worked with primates, a primatologist, world-renowned primatologist, was the inspiration for Dr. Maria Mayer. They have become very good friends over the years, or did, and she had made a statement during her little segment that they had her on last night, and I'm going to read that real quick because I loved what she said. Now, she is a scientist. She is a primatologist, and what she said was, "There's something. I mean, otherwise, there wouldn't be stories in every single country." And that was her quote. And Mike, you and I have talked about that before.
Yeah.
You know, if it was just something that they talk about, this creature, hairy creature, smells, runs around in the woods, and nobody can ever see him or get pictures of the guy or whatever, and it was just confined here to the United States or, North America, I should say, that would be one thing. But there's legends of the same type of creature everywhere around the world, right?
Yeah, and like all 225 or however many tribes, Native American, First Nations people tribes there are in North America, every one of them has stories about Sasquatch. They differ a little bit in what they think it is, but they all have stories about it. And that's what she said, is that she believes that it's real because that's how discovery starts. That's how they discovered the great apes. It was the locals that told them that they were seeing these things, and that's how it starts, is with stories. Sometimes people get wrapped around the axle that first-hand accounts isn't science, but it's a good indicator where to look.
Exactly.
So that's why she likes it.
What season was Jane Goodall in? Because I'd like to see.
She was not in this show. They've had little clips of her along the way, all 6 seasons of Expedition Bigfoot, because of her friendship with Dr. Maria Mayer.
Yeah, they've shown some clips of her talking with Maria Mayer.
about Bigfoot specifically, because that would be, I mean, I didn't realize.
Jane Goodall had never seen a Bigfoot, as far as I know. I don't remember her ever saying she saw one, but she remains very open-minded about Bigfoot because of the fact that, you know, there's legends in every single country about her. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I was just reading Linda's notes here real quick. Okay. So that's why it's important. And so when you take somebody who is a scientist and has as much experience as Jane Goodall, and she remains open-minded and has a tendency to want to believe that there's something, that's what she said, there's something, because why are all these people seeing things? And again, something that Mike and I have often talked about. When you take First Nations people, I don't care what country, whether you're talking about Canada, whether you're talking about America, North America, wherever, when you take First Nations people and you look at the history of them going all the way back, they have legends of, and we're going to get into that a little bit more tonight as we talk about the man that Bryce was talking to toward the end of the show and some of the things he had to say. But those are the kind of legends and stories with the First Nations people that I take very seriously, because they're not going to make this stuff up just because they want to. I mean, it's part of their history. It's part of and they were here long before we were. So if it goes that far back, there's got to be something to it. So I'm the same way. I've said that before. I'll say it again here in this first episode. I am still on the fence with Bigfoot, but because of these stories and because of all the sightings, they said in Washington alone, 500 a year in Washington state. Even if just one is true, then he exists, right? So.
Yes, that's the math, Jeff.
Well, where's the bones? I'm one of those guys. Where's the bones?
Oh my gosh.
Linda just said Jane Goodall was on the premiere of season 3. Expedition Bigfoot.
Okay. So I'd be interested in watching that. I'm a Jane Goodall fan. That might rope me in finally to the topic.
Yeah.
You guys are doing a great job, though, pulling me in against my will. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. It's like my wife, Christina's the same way. She's like, you know, all these shows that I've exposed her to since I've known her in the last, 5 years or, like that. She's like, I got her sucked into all these things. And now she's like, oh, we got to watch Expedition Bigfoot. We got to see what's going on. You got me into this. I got to see, so yeah.
I only have so much room in my brain. There's only so much I can fit in there. I think at this point.
A lot of science in there.
Yeah, let's look around. We'll toss some stuff out.
I do.
We'll make room. Because you need to be a Bigfoot fan. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right. So we're moving along here. So the guys last season, and we're going to talk about this a little bit about last season, because I think they left a lot of things unanswered. But they were in Northern California last year, and they did some really, really good stuff there. I thought I really liked last season's episodes. Now they are 500 miles north up in Washington State. They were calling it Southern Washington, Northern California to Southern Washington. So that shows the trek of where they were up to where they are now, which is that's Bigfoot country right there. All the way along there. So, Mike, what was some of the things from last season? I know there was some hair samples and whatnot, that there was a lot of things that were left unanswered that they never came back and talked about.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing. And who knows, maybe they'll revisit some of that within this season. I don't know. But in past seasons, they end the season with that kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
They had a lot of eDNA samples that they'd taken, hair samples. They found that the really elaborate nests right at the end of the season, and then everything just kind of abruptly stopped. And that seemed like that was it. It seemed like there were more episodes, and maybe they stopped halfway through the season for whatever reason, and switched gears and went on to season 6. So
yeah. There was some eDNA that we never got answers on.
Right.
and hair samples that we never got answered on.
Were they in the nests? Because I'm still hung up on the fact that there are giant nests.
Yeah.
I've literally never heard of that. And all of the Bigfoot conversation that people have spoken to me about, which is not frequently because obvious reasons, they have like birds' nests on the ground is what they look like.
So what they find is they often look a lot like the same type of nest that silverbacks make. So they'll take branches, break boughs that still have some vegetation on them, and they'll pack it down. In fact, I read an article. It was actually in like the Wall Street Journal, and it was talking about these sort of closet Bigfooters, the ones that are closet meaning
Bigfooters.
They were not out in the open about being interested in Bigfoot because of their careers.
Interesting.
And the one person that they were talking to worked at a zoo with silverbacks and had been out in the timber in the woods, and they came upon something that looked like a nest. And as she got to looking at it, she realized that it was identical to the nest she watched the silverbacks make in the zoo. And it was big enough for, a fairly large creature, and it wasn't something that an elk or, what other animal can break branches off, especially ones that are high up and have enough vegetation on them, and make a nest out of them. So people like that and that's what you see a lot, is you'll see people that have expertise in whatever field it is, and they see something that they realize no one else would ever know to do something like that. And that means the only answer is it's probably real. And if it's real, then what? Then what's the conclusion? Is there really something out there? And is there really this, large bipedal ape-like creature? And that's what they get interested in.
So was the nest that was found larger than what the silverbacks make? Like it wasn't like a silverback nest, but it was larger?
They didn't say specifically. They just knew that it looked a lot. It was very, very similar to what they see the silverbacks making. And so that sort of, they realized, well, okay, if only a primate does that, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere, in the woods, that got them interested and started researching for more Bigfoot information.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
yeah. So that's a good point there. Thanks for bringing that up too, Michelle. Michelle brings up the point that Maria and Russ did an awesome presentation at Phenomenon in 23 and 24 that showed some of Jane Goodall's bits and talked about the nest. Both were very good, and they were. I was very impressed. And that's one of the first opportunities I had to actually listen in 23, my first year at Phenomenon in Vernal, Utah. And I went there, and that was my first time to listen to Dr. Maria Mayer's presentation. And I was blown away. I was blown away by her and her experience and her background and the way that she looks at this. She goes into this not as a believer, not as a disbeliever, but as someone who is gathering information to make an assessment of her own on it. And I think
like
that's
a scientist.
Exactly. And I was so impressed with that woman after listening to her presentation. And then when we were there last year, I said, Christina, because I couldn't, I had something else I had to do, but I told Christina, you need to sit and listen to this. And she did. And she came out of there the same way. After listening to it.
Christina spoke high praises of her when we met. And she's one of the primary reasons that I was like, oh, okay. It sounds like she's got a great background, like a wonderful foundation.
Yeah. And you always have that kind of group, when you put a team together to go out and do research, like this particular team here, you have to have the right group of people And you're always going to have someone like Ronnie LeBlanc was, who, Ronnie was like, you hear a knock on a tree, that's Bigfoot. I mean, everything was Bigfoot, and that's understandable because he has a lot of experience in this as well. And so I'm not saying anything bad about Ronnie in that respect, but then you also have to have the one like rise a little bit when Ronnie would say something like that, because she said, okay, let's step back and look at this tree structure and see, is this really what we think it is, or what you think it is, or let's look at it scientifically. So you need that. I think you need to have both of those in there, right? So to make a good investigation. So so the nest of it, we're going to get to that here too as we go along. I want to show this next picture here. This next one here, this kind of showed, this is what they displayed on there, showing these were the eyewitness reports throughout the area of Washington and going up into Canada, Vancouver and British Columbia, and then going up that way. And so what they did was they took those witness reports and put them together, and then they zoomed in on it a little bit. And as they talked about much last night, you can see this split off area, a Y, where it looks like these are sightings. These are reports of sightings where it kind of splits off. So, and I wanted to zoom. What I decided to do, because this doesn't really give you it kind of shows you roughly where it is. But, excuse me, for those of you who are not familiar with the Pacific Northwest, and this is Bigfoot country, they had, Bryce had found a nest, and we're going to get to that in a minute. And he put the circle here, that circle's kind of big, but that's generally the area where that nest was, that the gentleman took him out in the woods to see. They kept his identity out of it. Again, closet Bigfoot guy or whatever that Mike talked about, because it's just like the UFO thing used to be. It could ruin your reputation, if you get out there and talk about it. That is the Washington-Oregon border. Exactly. So what I did was I took the Google Maps and I took a shot of that and basically put that on here. So this is that migration path that comes up, and it comes around like that, and then it comes off over here. And it looks like there was some coming up into here too. So were they coming across the river there? I suppose. But you see what's close to this. What is very, very close to that path is this right here.
A little town there. Yeah.
Just a little city, little port, a lot of ships coming in and out of through here to port. I've been in Seattle several times. That's a big city.
Yep.
So if they're making their way up like through here, I can see where there would be a lot of reports in that area. What do you think? I'm in Tacoma, Flat Rockland says, hey, cool. Yeah, I've been up in that area quite a few times.
Are the reports, because I don't remember them saying this on the show, are they chronologically moving? Like,
so that's what I was going to say is they made quite a leap there. And so I gotta call them out a little bit on that to say that that's a migratory path because of the way that those sightings go. You can't say that. You can't say that unless you collared a Bigfoot and like you just said, Shannon, had some sequential sightings or, we're tracking them going up down. All that it means is that there's a lot of sightings in those areas. So, not to mention that what I've heard indicates that it's not necessarily the migration. Migration is like, geese and ducks. They go all the way north and all the way south. What I hear is that Sasquatch are more like nomadic, and they'll move from area to area based on the resources available. And like they indicated in the show, there's a lot of resources in those areas. They may be there full time year round because there's enough resources to survive. They don't have to go anywhere.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to make that distinction that you can't really call it a migratory route because you don't have that kind of data.
Right.
Yeah,
they didn't really say Go ahead.
It also looks like there's more concentrated sightings as well. Like there's areas where it's just kind of scattered about.
Dense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I wonder if it correlates with the population density as in terms of like, oh, a larger number of being seen because there's more actual people in the area to see them. So that's interesting. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my internet, my Starlink was messing up a little bit there, and I guess it's part of what I said got cut out. But anyway, it probably wasn't all that important anyway. So
we heard you for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So this area down here where the nest was that they found, that would be well, I got another shot here, right here by Astoria, somewhere in this general area. But again, with that said about Seattle, because you see Seattle up here at the top, it doesn't take you very far to get outside of Seattle until you're in dense forest again. All this is heavy forest area. So, obviously they talked about the migration because of what they were talking about last season when they were up, when they did Alaska, or 2 seasons ago when they did Alaska, and they were talking about, are these things migrating from Alaska down to Northern California? Is that possible? Yes, it is possible, but is it likely? Don't know. Like Mike said, they might hang out in these areas all the time. They might not be migrating back and forth. I don't know. Just right are the Cascades. Left are the Olympics. Yep. Tons of logging land all around. Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, I've been around that area a little bit, not a lot. I actually lived in Vancouver, Washington for a while. And I did get to explore much of that and going out to Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier and all of that. So that's lots and lots of heavy forested areas. I would think there might be shorter migration routes to track for seasonal food sources. Yes. Yeah. And that would be why you would migrate, I think, for food sources for them. Yeah.
What I think is interesting is the fact that it's so close to the coast. And also, I don't have Bigfoot background knowledge, but I have pretty good sort of like UAP, UFO, alien theory knowledge. And I think it's interesting that like this coast specifically has, maybe not that far up, but there are a lot of stories about sightings and things being over the ocean in that part of the country. So it is fascinating to me that it's so close to the coast. Not drawing a compare. I know that some people think that they're connected. Maybe UFOs and Bigfoot.
Yep, there you go. So that's the same thing.
Yeah, lights are often seen in the same area where there are sightings of Sasquatch. Yep.
So that is interesting that it's coastal, that this hot spot is sort of coastal to.
Well, there's hot spots because we're looking at the coast. There's hot spots.
Oh, there's hot spots everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well then I retract my previous statement.
Pretty much everywhere, but where I am, Iowa, there's not really anything. It's just corn here.
You have to stop me then. I retract.
They can only hide the cornfields at a certain time of the year.
But that's what I was going to say is that you see.
You told me they get spider crawl.
Yeah.
Yes, spider crawl or gecko. Gecko, is that less offensive than spider?
No, it's all terrifying.
Scurry super fast, like a gecko, as fast as a gecko.
No, I don't want
pounds.
Anything giant scurrying past.
Oh, yeah.
But keep in mind there are plenty of sightings on the edge of what you would consider the city. You don't have to go deep in the woods. We're talking a few hundred yards, and there's sightings. People are in their homes and looking across a pasture and seeing Sasquatch. So you don't have to be too far from civilization to have sightings. And the more we encroach on their territory, no different than any other animal.
Yep.
You have sightings.
Yep.
Well, I guess I won't be walking my dog at night anymore. I'm going to be looking for Bigfoot now.
Well, there you go. Seth brings up a good point. We had the Navajo Rangers on the show, and those guys were on Skinwalker Ranch or beyond Skinwalker Ranch. They report that they are usually reported together on the nation where they get UFO type reports as well as other things.
It would be a really clever camouflage if you were a stereotypical cartoon drawn looking alien to be like, I'm just gonna appear as their big ape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, that's
Why
what
not?
that's definitely what I would do.
You know, and Mike and I have discussed this over the last 2 years, talking about Bigfoot, you know, and portals. Even, I mean, again, I try to remain very, very open minded about all of this. How do they seem to slip away so easily? And we've had Russ Acord has watched them in a thermal, watching it walking along in an area that's an open field area with the woods in the background, and then all of a sudden it just goes whoop, gone. I mean, how does that happen? How does it simply disappear as if it walked behind a wall? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I'm starting, because of doing different types of research, really, I'm looking at case studies of materialization that we see pop up in physical mediumship, and the idea of ectoplasm being a real thing, and these physical manifestations that appear out of nowhere and then disappear. Because there's evidence of that stuff as well, even though it's not talked about very much because it sounds so out there.
Right.
And I don't think that requires a portal necessarily, so much as just the right conduit of time or person or space, perhaps. I don't know if we would call it a portal, but I think that's really interesting.
Yep. To answer your question, Sam, yes, I do know Russ. I don't know him. I wouldn't say that he and I are friends. I have met him. He has been on the podcast before. We've had him on the show. We got a really good chance to talk to him for an hour and a half and pick his brain and all of that. And I have talked to him at both Phenomenicons that I've been there. And matter of fact, I emailed him. We texted back and forth a little bit just about a month ago. So yeah, but I wouldn't say, I mean, we're not at the level I could say he's my friend, but I do know him. Yes. So, and I think he is a stand-up guy, absolutely stand-up guy. He's not going to come out there and BS anybody. Put it that way. If he's going to call it like he sees it, and he's not going to BS you. I feel very confident in that. So leave it at that.
He was the ex-Marine / survivalist.
Yes.
On the show. Okay.
Yep.
I'm learning everyone's names.
And he carries a pack that would just kill you to put on and walk around. That big pack he has.
Did it have the little Bigfoot thing on the back of it?
Yes, it does. Okay. I have one of those too.
You mean Scout?
There it is.
Yes. This is Scout.
I need one of those.
Let's show Scout again. Show Scout again.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's it right there. I have one of those as well.
I need one.
The people
that'll pressure me into studying.
Yeah, the people that make those are friends of Russell's, and that's why he does that. You know, and I think that someday, if Russell ever comes across a family of Bigfoot, a family of Bigfoot, yeah, and there's an adolescent there, he's going to take that and hand it to the one and see what the kid thinks of it. I think suggested dark matter. They may be able to use it in some way. Oh, isn't that a scary thought?
I believe that.
Yep. I mean, how else does it disappear? And how else is there no bones? How there's no bodies? There's no physical evidence of a Bigfoot besides footprints.
What if they don't have bones, Jeff? Gosh.
What if they what?
What if they don't have bones? Have you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought maybe they don't have bones?
No. That's how they crawl on the ground like a.
That actually, I'm sorry. The fact that they do that probably says that they don't have bones.
I know,
so
right?
What kind of body can change?
Yeah, they slip. Slip under doorways like a mouse.
Maybe they have very tiny bones. Maybe they have several tiny bones.
Maybe they bury their bodies. Maybe they do. Maybe they do bury their body. I don't know. But why do they vanish the way they do? Yeah, Florida has their sightings. Yeah, we've got a group that's right here in Florida that I actually went out with, Mid-Florida Bigfoot Research Group, headed up by Marie Dumont and Mike Aguilar, and those guys, a great group of people, and they are investigating this wholeheartedly and doing their best to get good stuff. I've been out in the field with them. We stepped on a rattlesnake. I mean, it was good times. Nobody got, poisoned or anything, but
only in Florida.
Yeah, only in Florida, right? So whenever I do that, I wear snake boots from now on. But yeah, so I mean, they call them skunk ape down here, and there's a big bunch of guys that actually do that down here. I've forgotten the guy's name is off the tip of my tongue, but yeah, and I'll be making contact with Marie while we're down here too. So anyway, great groups all around the country doing this and doing serious investigations. So
I imagine there's something near me too. I'm up near the Appalachian Mountain, the Blue Ridge Mountain.
if you're near heavy wooded areas, look at that.
You saw where I am.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yes. I believe there would be sightings in your area. If I may, before we leave tonight, I'll bring up the map. If I can, Bigfoot sightings map, and it shows everywhere in the United States where Bigfoot sightings are happening, except where Mike lives. So,
yeah. Poor Mike.
Poor Mike.
Yep. Bigfootmap.com.
Bigfootmap.com.
Wait, is that a thing?
Yes, it is a thing. It is a thing.
Okay.
Bigfootmap.com. We'll look it up here in just a few minutes when we get going along here.
But,
so speaking of the nests, these were the nests from last season. There was actually 3 of them. There was a smaller one, a little bigger one, and then there was one that was a little further away, not much farther, but a little further away from these 2 were side by side. Now, Mike, what were we saying about the reasoning for that? Why was there 2 side by side and then one a little further away?
Yeah. So we've seen nests before, but nothing anywhere close to this ever. And it seems like traditionally it's just kind of the normal, it would be just a normal round patch of twigs and some boughs. And they typically are within line of sight of each other, but they're not right on top of each other. These looked like gigantic bathtubs, extremely elaborate. When we talked about this, I think everybody kind of came up with the same conclusion: is this had to mean something far more important was going on than just making a bed to go to sleep in for a few nights and then move on. And of course, the thing that came up was that they were going to have a baby, and this was birthing beds, and the amount of energy and calories they would have burned to make these beds, meant that it was really, really important, because every calorie they burn is another calorie they got to go, fight and kill to get and eat. So it's got to mean something to be this significantly more elaborate and impressive. And everything in there was green, bright green, so fresh. A couple of days, and they had, just kind of stumbled upon this. So that's kind of where they ended the season last season. So that's why it's kind of disappointing. They didn't get samples from that, and eDNA or hair samples or what, but that was the most impressive nests I've ever seen.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely beyond anything I had ever seen before. And would they go through, you think about this, as Mike mentioned, the calories you would burn building something like this, and the branches that were snapped off. You look around the trees that are close by, and the branches are not snapped off very low down to the ground. So a lot of these were up very high, which it would take somebody, very tall person to be able to even reach them, let alone snap them off up there. But they made very elaborate beds. So would you make a bed this elaborate for just to spend the night in it? Probably not. If you're going to expend that much, that amount of calories, you're not going to build something this elaborate. These were elaborate. And so I don't know. And then there was the one that was a little bit bigger that was set aside from the others that we would figure would be the father figure, the male, dominant male figure. And not right there with him, but a little further away so that he can keep an eye on things, but yet have his own little space or whatever. I don't know. But it was a little further away, but still close within easy hearing range of these 2. So I don't know. And thank you, Eva, for bringing up the David Shealy. Thank you. Skunk Ape Headquarters Museum in Florida. That's who I was trying to think of, David Shealy. Thank you, Eva.
Go ahead. So many questions.
Go ahead, please.
Of course.
Okay. Of course I do.
Good.
That's why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me, as someone, again, it seems like quite an extraordinary leap to go from bed to birthing suite. Can you explain to me the logic between going from one to the other?
I could have. I mean, we're not saying that that's what it is, but logically, to say that this is probably 3 times, because like I said, they're normally round, and to say that this is like 3 times that size, and that there were multiples, it just seemed like it had to be something more important than just sleeping for the night. What else could it be?
So the first thought that I had, which was definitely not a birthing thing, was, oh, this is like a meeting, like a ritualistic meeting space.
Could be ceremonial in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form.
Because
Absolutely.
that would make sense with the brighter greenery and it having such more detail to it, like ritualistic meeting of several. Because if you're giving birth, then to me that would imply like, oh, you're here. Because why else would you give birth here
Yeah.
if you weren't here? If that makes sense.
Yeah. My thought too. Go ahead, Mike.
No, it was just one of the theories that we came up with when we saw those, because like I said, it was so much different than anything else we'd ever seen. It had to have far more significance than just a normal bed.
Yeah, it really did. And, it almost looked to me like they had made them, but then had been run away from them, maybe by the approach of Russ and his team.
Yep. Right.
Because it didn't look like there was if they would have been birthing beds, there was no remnant of anything left behind that would be normally left behind. You can imagine on that. And they were like, looked like they had been laid in, but nothing more than that, and not very much. And they were very fresh. So it almost appeared to me, that was my impression, that they had made them, maybe used them one night, but then got run off by human activity or something else in the area, which, is very likely. So, could it have been a family bed or large bed that they put all the children into sleep, with other beds around to protect their young? Could be.
Yep.
Absolutely.
How do we know that there's children?
We don't. We're just making an assumption because of the size.
No. I guess I mean in the broader sense, like, is there evidence of there being different size footprints that imply that there is a child?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they've seen small ones. People have had sightings of young ones. They do seem to develop extremely fast. I mean, I think the problem is we compare them to humans, and humans comparably develop extremely slow. So maturing wise, but they grow very quickly, and get big, as you might expect. They get big quick. So, but no, there's plenty of sightings and even footprints of smaller ones. So we know that there's always youth around.
Yeah, and two, you look at creatures of the wild. A human baby is completely helpless for how long of its life, but then you look at creatures
21
of
years.
the wild. Yeah, I was going to say 18, but yeah. But you look at other creatures of the wild. They, especially in giraffes or whatever, and other animals like that, they got to be up and moving right away, or predators will get them. So there's no time to be, being, carried around like a human baby would be. So they got to be ready to go, and they grow very quickly, so they can move very quickly. So
that would imply that they would either have a comparable or longer gestation period for pregnancy than.
Yep.
That they're coming out at a certain size so that they can grow more rapidly.
Yeah.
Has anybody reported ever seeing a pregnant Bigfoot?
Well, there was some people said that Patty may have been, close to that, because there was a couple.
Are you body shaming Patty, Jeff?
No, I think that
I set you up for this. I really did set you up. Okay, sorry.
Hot. No, I'm sorry. But she was obviously a female, so there's pretty obvious signs of being a female there. So,
oh my gosh. Okay. I should not have asked.
Didn't Dr. Melden mention nests that look like bassinets? Yes, he did, I believe. Yes. And also, we talked about Seth brought up that Russell has found small prints, Bigfoot prints. Jeff, you're so red. Yes, I know. I wear it well. It's the heat in there. I got that little heater on. That's why it's the heater. It's nothing else.
That's why you brought me on the show, Jeff. Moments
yes,
like
exactly.
That.
So you can make me turn that off, would you please? Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, it's getting a little hot in here. Okay, so speaking of speaking of beds, the one that this gentleman that was remained anonymous took Bryce up to see was this one here, and you can see it right here in this circle. Very well defined. It looked a lot like the one that they seen in Northern California.
Yep.
Had the greenery, the sticks around there, and then the greenery. So this one was pretty cool. And here's a little closer look at it. And one of the things that, and I have to bring this up because I noticed it, and it kind of, and I'm going to qualify this before I go too far with my statement here, but I have to qualify this by saying I was not there to see this myself. Did not see it myself. I'm just looking at pictures. Are the pictures of what I'm seeing, are they definitely what I think they are, or is it just because I wasn't there and I'm seeing just weird pictures? Now, the reason I say that is because look at some of these sticks. And I didn't like this when I saw the close up of it, and that's why I brought
off. It. Yep.
Yeah.
They're squared
We've
off.
got several sticks here that I'm sorry, but they look cut to me. Now, Bryce said at the end of the episode, or at the end of the scene, the segment, he said, I'm very sure who made this. And now he could have seen that too. Now, many of the sticks are broken, but I'm sorry, but several of those sticks look cut.
Yeah, that was
this
good
one
catch.
This one here's been broken. This one here, several in the background have been broken.
Yeah, I mean, the broken ones could have been just like last minute ones. They cut the previous ones to just like make a.
Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wait a second. A human made this. I don't know. I was not there on the scene to examine these myself and look for saw marks. So I'm making an assumption based upon this particular picture. Now, the ones that were in Northern California that Russell and all them saw, Russell would have pointed it out. And so would have Dr. Mayer would have pointed out if they would have seen cut sticks. And I didn't see any. I went back and looked at them. I didn't see any cut sticks on those.
Yeah.
But I did see cut sticks on these. What looks like cut sticks. So I don't know. Maybe somebody, had, and the guy said there's no hikers or nobody's ever up there. But he was up there. So I don't know. Just take that for what it's worth, folks. I'm just pointing it out. I don't know because I wasn't there. I don't know the actual answer to all of that, but I had to qualify this. I had to point that out.
Yep.
So it's still a cool find, but it could have been made by human hands. And I tell you honestly, if I was a survivalist and I was looking to make a bed for the night, I might make something similar to this. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't want to put a oh hum on this, but I mean, I had to point that out. Some of those sticks definitely look cut. Okay, so moving on from the nests, which I think are pretty cool in their own right. The guys meet up later on as they get grouped up. They meet with this man right here, Andy Mayock. He's a geophysicist and seismology expert. Sorry. And he brought out an interesting set of pieces of equipment. And he was calling it a seismology tripwire. Did I say that right? Seismographic tripwire. And it's an interesting technology. And that's one of the things that I know Mike and I have talked about on several occasions over the course of the last couple of years about the team applying science to this. And I'm so glad that they do. What do you think, Mike? I mean,
yeah, they've always been good at at using some pretty state-of-the-art technology, whether it's like that robot dog that had LiDAR
That cool.
and infrared on it, or something like this. This I could see all kinds of uses for this. I'm surprised they did this in a straight line, again, going back on that theory of a migration route, but you could put these in a circle and just camp in the middle and wait and see if something comes to take a look at you. There's lots of interesting ways that you could use this technology.
Yeah, this was really, really cool. There's been so much different technology that they brought to bear on this, and Mike just mentioned a few. One of the things that I really like is LiDAR. And that's one of the things that Pete Kelsey, and those of you who are familiar with Pete Kelsey from Skinwalker Ranch, well, he's not from Skinwalker Ranch. He's been on that show many, many times. And then he's also done his LiDAR work in the Alcatraz, all over the world. The man's been all over the world now doing his LiDAR. He's an expert in this. And he is very, very good. He's been on Expedition Bigfoot for the last couple seasons doing some work, flying his LiDAR in drones and also handheld. And I would say with him, we are friends. He and I have become friends. I've talked to him quite frequently. And Pete is another man of integrity. He's not going to BS you with some. And this man was shaken to his boots when he was out with his handheld slam scanner.
Yeah,
and he was
that'd
walking.
be a good episode for Shannon to go back and look.
That would be
for sure, because I agree with you. Pete is really just, I have so much respect and like him so much. He's such a wonderfully smart, I feel trustworthy man, and incredibly humble and just very kind. So I would definitely trust him, and I'm curious. So that's the episode I need to watch, whichever one Pete's in. I'll find it.
Yeah, it's there. I can look it up and tell you which one it was, but he's been in a couple. He was in Alaska too. And he talked about how cold it was up there, but he went out with a slam scanner because they had found a spot when they were flying the drone. He had found a spot that looked like a little clearing in the woods, and he wanted to go check it out. So he grabbed he took the scanner off of the drone and he was walking with it. And as he saw movement, and then they went back and it shook him up. And then they went back and they reviewed the recording, the data from his slam scanner, and you could see a humanoid type figure walk across the field of view in front of him, in front of the slam scanner. And it was a humanoid figure walked across there in front of him, and it shook him up, seriously shook him up. And he talked about that with us. And it was, and what was it? We don't know. We have no idea what it was, but it looked like a humanoid figure walking in just a little ways in front of him.
Ghosted through the scan, where the scanner's making repeated sweeps, and you could see it in multiple sweeps. So it looks like a ghost kind of walking through. That's what they call it, is ghosting. And normally they would not want that if someone's walking through a scan that they're doing. But he didn't know that there was anything there. I think something crashed, like a tree or something fell right next to him. And then he reacted to something going from left to right. And was like, what was that? And went back and looked at the footage that the LiDAR had collected. And sure enough, something did go through that scan very quickly. So
he was
that'd be a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one to watch. If any of you haven't seen that one,
Pete had brown socks.
Brown socks episode for sure.
He really needs to sell those. His own brand of brown socks.
Kelsey brown socks. Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
It's so funny.
Put the ones from Kelsey on Discord DM. Oh, you did. Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to check that in a second. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Robert helps with the Discord channel that we have that we hang out in and talk about stuff. So check that out if you haven't. We'll get that up here and we'll tell you which one that was so you guys can watch it. That's a really good episode. And then the ones with the robot dog and going into the tunnels and just stuff. I mean, it's just interesting that they're not just simply going out listening and playing sounds. They do that and then play the Sierra sound, stuff like that in the woods. Here, listen for tree knocks and knocking on trees. They don't really knock on trees. I've never actually seen them do that. But they do apply a lot of really cool science to this. And that's, I think, is key. The infrared and all that kind of stuff, thermals and stuff are really good. And that's what you're going to have to do if you want to capture something. So Tom says, if these creatures have any sort of special abilities, perhaps seismic sensors are useless. It might be.
Could be.
Thought that might. It could be.
So there are reports. In fact, I just heard a couple recently where hunters will be, like up in a tree stand or something, and witness a Sasquatch hunting. I've heard of this when they're hunting like deer or pigs, and their comment was, even though it was like fall and there's leaves and debris on the ground, the Bigfoot made no noise. There was no noise at all, and it should have made noise. You should have still been able to at least hear it. Could have been stealthy, but they're like, there was no noise at all,
right?
Until it attacked,
right?
So yeah, who knows? It's worth a shot, though. I mean, they haven't tried it before. That's what I like, is they try different types of technology to see kind of what works and what doesn't. We know that they've seen stuff on thermal, they've seen stuff on infrared, they've seen stuff with LiDAR, and they keep trying new stuff. So seismic will be interesting.
When you say they didn't make noise until they attacked you mean like the Bigfoot made a noise, or the animal made a noise, or like the environment made a noise, or all of the above?
All the above.
For some reason, it's not letting me capture this picture here. All right, let me try this. Hang on, bear with me a second. So, but yeah, so that's one of the things that I think that I find so fascinating is the science. But let me hang on a second. I'm going to try to save this image real quick, because it shows the humanoid figure. Okay. All right. So I'll bring that up here in just a second. I wanted to get on to the next picture. Thank you, Robert, for that, by the way. So that next scene here is them talking about this 18 miles. Can you imagine 18 miles? So across this Y that you saw, they put this string of these sensors, and they're seismic sensors that you shove it into the ground. And then they're all connected with each other. And we'll talk about that in a minute, how that works. But and they have to overlap a little bit. So there's no gap in between each one. And I was kind of laughing, chuckling to myself when they were talking about putting these out into the field. Because here you are in the woods, you're in dense forest. And they had, I don't know how many, they had 9 miles each. They show on this figure here, you can see 9 miles for Maria and Miko and 9 miles for Russell. And they have to cover this in one day and get all these things put out in one day. That's an amazing feat in itself.
Did they have to work through the like Park Service or somebody to be allowed to do this? Because it's not like private property, like with the ranch or whatever.
I'm sure they get whatever permits they need.
Yeah, I would think they have to. Yeah, for sure. Seems like they would have to. Must be evolutionary advantage. They've evolved extra padding on their feet and specialized hair to dampen sound. Yeah. Oh yeah, I would think so. Over years, for sure. And and that's another thing too, that we talk about them disappearing. And Mike and I have talked about this pretty thoroughly as well. Can you name any other animal or sea creature on this planet that is very good at disappearing into its surroundings, changing colors, changing shape?
A chameleon.
Chameleon? There's one in the ocean that does a very, very good job. It's called an octopus.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at an octopus, and that is, if that's an alien, not an alien creature in its own right.
I know we talk about the octopus all the time, but really, my favorite is the mantis shrimp. So, and a mantis shrimp can punch an octopus, and they're old too.
Yeah. But think about an octopus. An octopus can change its shape. It can look like a rock. It can have its skin all of a sudden showing points and stuff on it. It's so if that animal can do it, why not a bipedal animal? Why couldn't they?
there's lots of creatures that can blend in with their environment. I mean, there's some birds that can make themselves look like a piece of wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly, though.
There's been reports, a couple of them, where someone walked up upon it was an adult and two juveniles, and the instant that they saw the person, the two juveniles dropped down into, and he said, had I not seen them do it, I never ever would have thought that it was a creature. They looked like they turned into stones, boulders.
I don't like this.
They dropped down into kind of a tucked up, into themselves, and were perfectly still. And had he not seen them do it, he never would have noticed them. He could have walked within feet of them. He said, their ability to change their body shape was just unbelievable. He could not believe it, or look like a log laying on the ground. I've heard that too.
So how do we know that they're disappearing at all then?
Well, so I think that's a good question. I think in my mind, a lot can be explained by the fact that they have more abilities than we realize.
Yep.
And that they're stronger, faster. I mean, if they can, move like a spider on their fingertips and toes, the disappearing thing, people say that, the footprints disappear, but we've talked about this before. What we're not taking into account is they're incredibly strong, and all it takes is one leap, which we would think if we leapt forward to land on our knuckles like they can, we could leap, maybe an athlete can leap 15, 20 feet. Well, what if they can jump 40 or 50 feet? They could launch themselves even further. So you say prints disappear and there's nothing left, or there's no more, so they must have vanished into thin air. It may just be a misconception, but there's still a percentage of sightings where they're actually witnessing it blink out of existence, no longer visible, and either in an open field, or a lot of times they're holding onto a tree and they pull behind the tree and there's nothing. They're just gone. We've even seen them on the show where they'll see something on thermal behind a tree, and or back in the tree line or something, but you'll never see that thermal signature leave the area. They're like, it's gone now. It's just not there. So there's some percentage that's still too hard to explain by just, physical ability and ability to camouflage or change shape to look like something, naturally explained. There's an element there that it just doesn't quite fit yet.
The footprint thing, though, makes sense when you talk about perhaps them being able to maybe not tiptoe, but not have as much pressure, right? If they're not making sound, maybe that footprint is only there from those moments that you do hear sound.
Sure. Yep.
And also, I wonder about the heat signature. If they can manipulate their body in all different ways, I imagine they can probably manipulate the temperature of their body as well. That doesn't explain them zipping out of whatever, but those two elements I think are very interesting, especially the footprint thing, because you'd wonder. I don't wonder where their bones are, Jeff. I wonder, why aren't there more footprints? But if they're treading very, very lightly, or they're just not, it's defying the laws of physics as we know it in terms of applied pressure.
Well, they do have they have the mid-tarsal break, so they have an extra bend in their foot for extra flexibility. It keeps the base of the foot in contact with the ground longer than our foot does, because we don't have a mid-tarsal break. We can't flap our foot without moving our ankle. They can. And that makes sense. In talking to Dr. Meldrum, that makes sense when you weigh 800 pounds. You need extra surface area. Your foot wouldn't be able to take that kind of pressure. So it all kind of ties and kind of makes sense. But does that completely explain making no sound on ground that has very dry leaves, that regardless of how softly you put your foot down, you should be making sound, at least some kind of sound.
How do we know
so
that
there's
they're
always that
800
element.
pounds?
We don't. It's just estimates based on foot depth. And
based on like comparative stuff that we know about, right?
So yeah,
like we're using like the scale of comparison.
People will make an estimate based on. I mean, there's cattlemen that deal with steers and bulls and cows, and so they know what large animals or horses. Horse could be 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds. You have some idea of body mass and can be pretty good at judging how much something weighs. But I think, and we talked because I asked Meldrum about this, are they potentially more dense than normal? And he kind of said, nah, not really. And he did a rough calculation on Patty's dimensions and, came up with a fairly reasonable weight. I think it was like 350, 400 pounds. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't tie to, in my mind, it doesn't check the box on the evidence that is found, because her footprints were significantly deeper than anything else they could get horse or jumping off. Now, granted, Patterson and Gimlin were not big guys. They're both like just over 5 foot, small guys. So trying to jump off a tree stump with cowboy boots on and try and dig your heel in, you're just not gonna make a huge dent. But it does seem like they're heavier or denser than we would normally think. If you just upscale a human to that size, they seem significantly more dense than that. They're leaving impressions in ground much deeper than you would expect. And the other reason that I think that there's something to that their muscle density is higher or something, is that in the cases where I've heard them getting shot, they don't react the way you would expect them to based on the caliber they're hit with. And that would only make sense if they're denser than we would expect and not be as traumatized. It wouldn't suffer the same level of trauma if they were twice as dense as our muscle mass or something like that. So there's a few things in there that don't quite make sense to say that they're the same as us. They're just bigger.
So when you have obviously much more flexible joints, like when people hyperextend, I say this because of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, right? People who sublux and dislocate all of the time, you tend to have a much higher density of muscle because your muscle has to do the job of keeping your joints in place, even though you're able to pop out. So it does make me wonder if they're abnormally flexible in the sense that they can drop down. If they have more joints and denser muscle, that would make a lot of sense, actually. That they've got like a much more, that would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Okay. Eva brings up a good point too. She talks about a thought. I think the lack of a medulla in the hair shaft may have something to do with their being able to change or blend into with surroundings. Just a thought. It's a good thought. I mean, we don't know. We don't completely understand that yet, I don't think. So, yeah. See, that's what I love the chat. Everybody's got, smarter than we are. Or I am anyway.
Yes.
Now, Gissel brings up a good point too. Gissel Vogel, talking about, I wonder if they can hear frequency put out by grids, etc., used to find them. What about the 1.6 megahertz frequency and sighting correlation? So, yeah, exactly. We've talked about the fact, can they see, when you put game cams up on a tree or you put infrared up out in the woods, can they see that light that's being, emitted by that? We can't see it, but who's to say they can't?
If they're highly evolved, they probably can.
Maybe they can see that. And that's why they don't get captured on game cams, because they can see it. They stay away from it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's usually the recommendation when someone has a habituation problem with them, where they're harassing people at a home. One of the first suggestions is to surround the house with game cameras and motion sensing lights, because they're almost never caught. Very rarely do you ever see anything that's on a game camera. So there's something about the electronics or the infrared They may have near infrared vision. There's certainly animals that can see that way too. They clearly know to steer clear of them.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. Bigfoot New York Todd said hair changes color with different light. Background snagged by barbed wire, for example. Yep. And then Tom brought up, just looked it up, a gorilla can jump 26 feet horizontally and 10 feet vertically. So, yeah, brown hair can look like black, clear. You got to look, relook, change angles and light colors. There you go. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities as to why they can disappear, but it's Russell's seen it. We've seen it on the show where they just simply disappear, and how that happens. He was befuddled by it as well. So I don't know, but there's a lot of things that, you and talking about, was it not Bryce that was in the field in Northern California last season, and he was inside of a Faraday tent. He made a Faraday, or they made a Faraday tent, so that if it was possible that Bigfoot could pick up on the electronics, the EMF that's transmitted by electronics, he put everything inside of a Faraday tent so that it would block that from getting outside the tent, and then observe. And he did get some weird video captures from that, because the camera was looking out little holes or whatever, and they did get some pretty cool stuff. So,
and that's one of the theories, Shannon, as to why Patterson was able to get film footage.
Yes, thank you.
Because they had no electronics. Film cameras back in that era were spring wound.
Yeah.
And they, we're talking 1967.
Sense.
So they had, leather, wool, clothing. There was no spandex, polyester, Gore-Tex. It was all natural, and they were on horses. So that's one of the theories as to why they were able to sneak up on her and get footage.
Are there higher percentages of sightings around like Amish settlements where they don't use any technology?
Wow. I don't know.
I don't think so. Not that I've heard.
Wow.
Maybe they wouldn't report it though.
Right. I was just going to say, I don't know if the reports are as frequent.
But I wonder how close in like proximity, if there's like an Amish settlement, if there are reports like nearby to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And the fact that, like Seth said, the fact that they were on horses, so she heard a four-legged animal coming up and probably wasn't concerned. You knew that there'd be a couple of hairless monkeys riding on top of them.
Yeah, interesting. So I don't know. I mean, I knew we were going to get kind of deep into this, and these are all fantastic questions. Yeah. They really are, Shannon. I'm glad you're here to ask those, because it kind of makes us think too about some of the possibilities, the different possibilities of things. So,
you're welcome.
Thanks. You got to stick around. Even Kevin said that's a great question, Shannon.
Yep.
So, So, let's move on to this net, to this size. What did I call it again? The seismographical
tripwire or something.
Tripwire, yeah. So one of the things that they showed, this was something that Bryce had shown, or they had shown on the episode. They did this, and I don't know. Mike and I were just discussing this in the pre-show as to whether or not this is actual or was just somebody's rendition of a possibility of this net or this tripwire. If they can see something like this on it, that's huge, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, it would tell you where they're going, which direction. And Bryce mentioned that. He said something about them knowing which direction they're going.
Yeah.
That's
very impressive.
That's really impressive. So, and you heard him say that he told Dr. Maria Mayer that he could tell between, because of the cadence, they could tell between a bipedal or, four-legged animal walking in the woods, or, but if you have multiples, I don't know, if you got a whole herd of them, I don't know what would that give you? I'm not really sure. Mm-hmm. So, but if it can do this, that's real. That's going to be huge. We'll find out in coming episodes just how well it is. One of the scenes in the show, and I threw this in there just because, and I wasn't sure, sometimes you wonder what you get from the show that is production reasons. Could they have found another way to get to that last sensor they had to put in? They did look for another way, but then they ended up repelling it. And what was it that Mike? What was it that that Biko said on this?
Yeah, he's like repelling.
I think he's the new
That's
guy.
kind of risky for a survivalist to do. That's not something we do. So, and Maria even said, and the worst thing to do in repelling is to go near water.
Yeah,
look where she's at. What? Really?
He's the new guy on the show. That guy?
Yeah.
He's got the orange helmet.
This is basically like an initiation test.
Yeah, maybe so.
It's hazing.
It's hazing.
Yeah.
Television Bigfoot hunting hazing.
Yeah, maybe so. Who knows? But he made it down okay, and she slipped.
Yeah.
But she also, when she got down to the bottom, her shoes were soaking wet. Her pants were soaking wet. I mean, she was right over there in that waterfall. And it's like, okay. And last season we saw Russell. He had to go across that river, and he shot a line over it. It took him a while. I don't know how long he was working on that, but he wanted to get to the other side of that river, and he did. And he ended up having to go across a line to get over there. But and then the cameraman has to do it too, right? So how wherever they go, the camera guy's got to go too. Yep. So think of that as well. Anyway, that was kind of interesting part of the show. This is a look at the box. I didn't get a good shot of the little sensors that they jab into the ground, but it was basically a little square box with a metal spike on the end of it.
Yeah.
And they shove that spike into the ground and then push it down in there. And then it's hooked up to this. One thing I noticed right away when I saw this clip here, and then this was the last one, we don't know production wise what they show here, but we were assuming this was the last one that Russell had put in. And then we saw the last one that Maria and Biko put in. And you see that little white box right there. And I was wondering, and so was Mike, we were wondering, how do these things communicate with, back to the command center?
Yeah, real time.
Yeah, in real time. So, and I looked at that. As soon as I saw that box, I went, oh, that looks familiar. And then I looked up right here in my RV, and I've got the same thing. I got one sitting right there. That is a Starlink modem. That's exactly what that is. They got it sitting on its face, so you can't see the Starlink circle
logo
on it. Yeah, but that's a Starlink modem right there. So, and then there was one. So what I'm thinking is, you saw that band of all those sensors put in, and Russell, they started in the middle and worked their way out. And Russell was over here on the east side, Maria and Biko on the west side, and on the ends they put these in. So I think they're all connected with each other, and then the two on either end are sending the signal back from all of them in real time using Starlink. And they would have to get an antenna up above those trees, because I know full well with the one I have on the roof that it's got to have clear line of sight.
Yep.
To the northern skyline, or you're going to get a lot of interference. That's what's happening to me tonight. For some reason, mine is having some issues. I keep cutting out once in a while, but so Starlink. Thank you, Starlink, for providing that. So that you think about the big dense woods, how are they going to get that signal out there like that? So this was the gentleman that they talked to later on, and his name was Tom Suet.
Yep.
He's a tribal member. And he brought up a very interesting point, because as they were talking about this whole area, this whole place where they're looking, they were talking about this area where it looked, they were saying migration. They were talking about the migration from north to south and back and forth. And then this Y, and that's where they put this just south of this Y is where they put the string of sensors. And then he brought up a very interesting thing. He got talking about powwows, or a potash.
Potlatch.
Thank you.
Quacky-Walk call it a potlatch, not a powwow.
Yeah, a potlatch is a powwow, a gathering. And he made a comment during his talk with Bryce about someone or some others, maybe tribal members years ago, had seen a whole gathering of Bigfoot. He said some 30 or 40 of them, something like that, was it?
Yeah.
Do they have some sort of gathering too? So could this, and then Bryce started talking about that, is this area where there were so many sightings, could it be possible that this was or is some sort of a gathering place. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? What do you think, Shannon? Do they gather and have a powwow?
A ritual, perhaps? A ritual gathering?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
This one, I don't know.
Is it? I mean, if they have family groups, would they? And if they have some sort of a tribal structure, would they not have gatherings of their own? I mean, it was kind of funny listening to Tom talk about this, and talk about how they were, referring to each other. And my tribe is over here, and we do this, and then I don't know. That was kind of funny, but.
I mean, I think in all seriousness, though, if they have evolved to that point, then having some type of ritual ceremony or meeting, any type of ritual in highly evolved creatures happens. I mean, that's like one of the big even just with like humans with evolution.
Yeah.
One of the big markers was burying our dead, right? And having sort of like a ritual burial.
Yep.
So, and that was so long ago. So I do wonder, like, if there's groups, if there's organization of tribes and things, like what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the question is, what is the contents of their powwow? Like, what are they getting? Right. Like, how can we outsmart the humans this year? What can we do this time?
That's it, right there. Yeah.
Do we have new crawl techniques that we can utilize, or they're getting too close? I bet you they had a big meeting when they found out the show was being made. They were like, no, they're out for us now.
They got drones, they got these sensors in the ground, and that's funny, but you think about this. And Tom and I, or Mike and I have talked about this before. If Bigfoot does exist, and Bigfoot was nothing more than a big, dumb creature running around in the woods, we would have found him by now. So you have to add some sort of intelligence. And I think if he does exist, high intelligence to this creature to keep from being found, to be elusive, so elusive, it's not if he exists, it's not a dumb creature running around in the woods.
So to that point, I think what you're actually saying is, like, that's a learned behavior, right? So we see that with like the killer whales, the one that had been caught in that yacht or what have you, and then taught the other ones to attack boats. It would be the same sort of idea. It would be a learned behavior that would have to be trained in for there to have existed for as long as they have existed, supposedly.
Right.
There has to be some sort of communication and learned behavior and how they can stay covert, like partly probably something that's a natural response to your environment, just to like automatically kicks in, just like any other, like a chameleon or what have you. But then as our technology has evolved and we've had better methods of tracking, I imagine there would have to be some sort of communication to, oh, you're doing it too. I don't have anything to show off.
Sorry. We'll have to hook you up.
Let me just, I gotta, sorry, I'm gonna move this over here. Okay.
Oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous. I have one, but I think I should have worn my hat.
Oh, see, yeah, right.
No, but I think that's interesting to think that they would have to teach each other how to evade humans.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And that might be something that they go through in the. Oh, I was frozen there. That might be something that they go through teaching their young. We had seen in last season, we saw these big tree structures. I mean, very, very, where they take a lot of sticks and small trees, and they make almost a pyramid out of them, up into a tree, coming down. And then there were some smaller ones. So we speculated, was it they were teaching the young ones how to build these things, because there were some smaller ones that were only 4 or 5 feet high, and then there was some that were 12, 14 feet high. So were they teaching their young? And that makes sense that they would teach their young. And am I frozen? Oh, did you guys get any of that? I think I was frozen there.
No, we got all.
You're fine.
Okay. So is that possible? Yeah, why not? You will be teaching your young all those things, right?
Yeah.
So here's another picture, and this is where I go back to the First Nations peoples, and their legends and their lore, going back many hundreds of years, talking about these things. There was some that had talked about how Bigfoot actually participated. They traded with them. They participated in their ceremonies and stuff years ago, and
Like
that's
ritual
how.
ceremonies.
Yes, with the First Nations peoples.
Mm.
So, I mean, they were friends with them, over the years. So, and that's the kind of information I can't just dismiss that, right out. I even though, like I said, I'm still on the fence. You can't dismiss that. Just throw it out and say, nah, no way. They're making that up. I don't know. That's just too, I have a tendency to believe them more than I do some modern day stuff that's out there about it, but I don't know. They used to dance with them, Kat says. Yeah. So there's legends about that. And then at the end of the show, Russell, being Russell, comes upon something interesting. Like he always finds these tunnels or these old train tunnels or, tunnels dug in the woods, very, mining tunnels or whatever.
Creepy abandoned cabin.
Creepy abandoned cabins.
If it's something creepy or scary, Russ is going in.
Russ is going in, right? And you see him look back at his cameraman and go, "Are you ready to go in?" I wish we could hear that cameraman more often.
Yeah, right.
Because he was probably going, yeah. I don't know, Russ. What do you think? Should we go in there? Those drawings are the really? NYS Museum. Made 1850s. He has others more compiling. Iroquois Indians, legend of stone duck giants. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. So those legends, I mean, those are the things, as I said earlier, that I just can't. I can't just dismiss those offhand. No way. Can't do it. So, what does it mean? I don't know.
I mean, it makes me think of the fact. I wonder, like, if they saw them getting colonized and then retreated, right? Like, if they have the ability to leave and knowing that destruction is coming, like how long they were present, like visibly present without actually hiding from people for, right?
Yeah.
Before they learned that, like, oh, this isn't good. We should definitely be hiding because these are destructive.
Yeah.
There's certainly many encounters with them where the people report that the look that the Sasquatch gave them was absolute utter disgust and like, I just want to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're some kind of infestation.
Yep.
Not all of them, but more than enough to say that, that a lot of times they do not appreciate our presence.
Yeah.
But that's not in the indigenous stories, is it?
Not well. So there's some indigenous stories that they are cannibals and that they eat people. So I mean, it depends on the tribe. It depends on the tribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a professor that he was originally a physicist, but he works now in Native American department. I just was done with my Native American language class, and he is a member of the Dakota tribe, but he's very well versed in a lot of and now I'm definitely going to be like, hey, I know we were going to talk about consciousness stuff, but do you want to talk to me about Bigfoot and see what I can parse out of him? Because I'm sure, because he's told me some really interesting like UFO stories from tribal members and things. Because I'm the weird person that will ask those questions of him, but I never thought about asking Bigfoot questions. So now I've got a new.
Well,
yeah,
I'm really curious.
There's a connection there though with consciousness too, because
yes,
Les Stroud has mentioned Survivor Man, and this comes up from time to time. Mind speak. That that through consciousness, that he heard the Sasquatch speak to him, which was a little concerning to him. He thought he might be schizophrenic, or he went and saw a doctor to make sure. He said, no, if you're worried about it, you're not. Where he went into an area and they said, if you want to meet us, spend the night, is what he heard in his head. And he's like, it absolutely positively was not me. It came from something else and it was in my head. And he's like, all I could think of was, no, I'm not ready. And that was it. And there's a couple, I think he said there's a couple other accounts. And occasionally you hear about mind speak. So there may be and maybe that's why they're good at hiding, is because they can sense it's coming. Don't know. But sometimes it seems like people surprise them. It just depends. So there's a connection there somewhere.
Yep.
We'll let you figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. This is that picture that from, it was actually, I had shown it on our podcast that we had done, Mike and I, with John Edwards. And here is the two, you can see the ghosting. Here's one right here. That figure right here, and then it hits here again as it's walking along. And it you have to see it in motion. And when you watch the episode,
they
you'll
rotate
see it in
around.
motion. It's moving. And it's ghosting, as Mike mentioned. It's ghosting its way across in front of him. And it is a bipedal, humanoid-looking figure of some sort. No doubt about it. And that's where we were showing that. I actually had a little clip of it. I was playing the little clip. You can see that the play, I got the pause button down there at the bottom. So, I'll have to dig that up, and we'll have to show that again next time we gather here and talk about this, because it was really, really interesting. And that's where you go with technology, catching that kind of stuff. So, and Pete will tell you, it was not one of the crew members walking in front of him.
Yeah. So he was definitely, you can see on the episode, he was shook up because
when he was
back to the car and he pulls it up and he just, he was pretty shook.
It shook him up. And we've talked to him about that since, and he still, he says, that's, and what is he? I have no idea. He always says that, but he really didn't. He had no idea what the heck was going on with that. So, well, that was the episode last night. We're going to be looking for more, and I know that this team, with the addition of Biko, they're going to be throwing out some good stuff with this one. I'm really excited to see what comes of this episode or the season, and I hope. Mike and I were talking about this earlier. I really hope that they add some of the details that we didn't get from last season into this. I really would like to know some of that. Again, going back to those nests, and they took some samples down there. Did they get any eDNA out of that? Those hairs, did they get anything out of that? Maria took samples from the tree structures. They found hairs here and there. Did they get, what's the answers to some of those things? They had a lot of thermal hits. Those are the ones that really I like to see, is the thermal signatures of something walking in the woods. And that little clip that I had that I showed a little while ago, or did I show that one already? Did I show that clip? No, I didn't. Nope. Did I? I didn't show that. Oh, yeah. Now I got to go get it, because this thing, it was a clip, and it was showing one of the best clips from previous seasons that they had. I thought was really interesting. And here, I'll bring this up, and we'll wrap things up here with this.
Don't forget, we got to pull up the Bigfoot map, because you told me not to look at it.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
After you show the video.
Yeah. Okay. So this goes by pretty quick. I'll try to stop it as we go along to show you. The first part of it here shows the it says 27 days into the expedition. So we have this yet to come, the episode with this particular portion on it. But you can see something moving in the trees. It looks upright, but is it? I don't know. We'll get more explanation on that as we go along. But you'll see it, and I'm going to stop as we get close to this so you can know where to look. If you caught it, okay, you're going to be looking right in here in that area in between the trees. That's where it's going to happen. So watch as they, and I can play it again, But watch right in that area there. Right there. Did you catch that? I'll back it up. Right there. You can see it moving. It's right there right now. And it's moving in between these trees right here. See, it moves right across right there. So that's something that Russell captured with his cameraman. That's going to be really, really cool. Am I frozen? No? Okay. No. I didn't see you. What are you moving? I thought, oh, I'm frozen. Nobody hears me. So that's going to be really cool. Now, a couple of the other things that they had that were in past seasons was that right there.
The shadow.
The shadow.
That's still one of my favorite.
It absolutely, mine too. And Shannon,
talk about
this
cloaking,
was
Shannon.
Yeah, right there. You see the shadow right here. Now, to set this up, if you haven't seen it already, you've seen this episode, they are down in a creek, and they're standing on either in the water or just on the edge of the water across the creek. And on the other side is a cliff wall. That right there, what you see back here is a cliff wall. They heard some splashing noises, and so they whipped around with their flashlights. There was no one in between them, Maria, Ronnie LeBlanc, and the cliff wall. There was nobody in between them. No cameraman, no crew member, nobody out there. And yet you see this shadow figure move across right there. If you can see that, you can actually see legs right here.
You actually could see legs take a step.
Yeah. Take a step right there and then move across and then disappear.
Yeah. And to me, it looked like the body was not there. It's not that it was an actual shadow figure. It's like it was the shadow on the back side of a body. And because of where the flashlight was pointed at that moment, it would have cast a shadow on that side of it walking it's walking, left to right. It would have cast a shadow on the right side of the body. And as soon as they saw it, Maria's flashlight comes up and hits it directly, and it washes it out.
Yep. Yeah.
And they still say they have no clue. Maria was very shook up at that.
Yep. Yeah.
And she's like, I feel like the people that we talk to, where they know they saw something, but they just can't explain it. I can't reconcile what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was huge.
And not making any sound. It wasn't like there was splashing going on in the water, but there was clearly something walking, or the shadow of. And to me, it doesn't look like the shadow is back on the cliff. To me, it looks like the shadow is out in the middle of that creek, as it right up against the. If this is if you happen to have a prop, that looks like a Sasquatch.
Gosh. It wouldn't be a show like without your props.
You see how his back, there's a shadow on his back, right?
Yeah, right here.
So that, to me, that's what you're seeing, is the lack of light on the back side of whatever that is walking. It's just you can't see what's there.
Yeah.
So that is the type of thing where I'm like, I can explain like 99% of all of the experiences that I hear people having. But there's that 1% like this that it just doesn't. There's no natural explanation for that. There's no current physics I know that would allow for a body to be invisible, and let alone an animal, if you want to call it that. We always think we're smarter than everything else until we find something else. They just found a new whale species. Whales aren't small. In 2021. They found a brand new whale species.
Yeah, we're constantly finding new things.
Unknown before. That was one of the best pieces of evidence I've ever seen.
Me too.
Was this in last season? Like I can look for this?
I think this was 2 seasons ago, wasn't it? Because Ronnie LeBlanc was there with Maria, so that was 2 seasons ago.
It was either season 2 or season 3. I have to take a look.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it was earlier on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And many people have said there's a reflection in the water. And if you look, this portion down here does kind of look like a reflection in the water.
Yeah. And I actually.
Is that water?
Yeah, there's water between them. Yeah.
That's definitely a reflection.
this right here is the edge of the creek, and you can see the reflection. This is a rock, and there's the reflection of it. Same here, same here. So this is water down here.
Yeah, that's 100%.
You're seeing that reflection down there in the water. So yeah, and so as I move it, you can see the reflection is moving with it. So
that's true. Yeah.
I don't know. That was really
if you look at that, I had recorded that at one point and ran the whole thing super slow and changed the exposure and whatnot. You can actually see it first move to the right a little bit, and then it comes back and goes to the left and continues on. It's just really hard to see unless you make some adjustments to brightness, contrast, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was actually there even longer than what they kind of initially showed. They showed the part that's most visible, which is this part here. But take a look at where those flashlights are pointing. It doesn't make sense that you shouldn't see something there. You should be able to see whatever was there clearly.
It's
and
between
why
them
are you
and
just
the wall.
seeing the darkness?
Yeah.
And the second Maria's light comes up and points right at it, it washes it out. It's gone.
Yeah.
So they only saw this because they had flashlights. Otherwise, they would have just been in there in the dark with them.
Yeah, right. And earlier in this same area, they kept hearing gravel and rocks being tossed down, and you could kind of tell they're like it's shining their lights up there, and they're like, it's right there. You can see the rocks falling down.
Yeah,
but you can't see what's causing it to fall.
Or what's kicking the rocks, or what's
they were
rocks.
really befuddled as to why they couldn't tell what was causing the rocks to come down that cliff face. Because it wasn't terribly high. I mean, it was they could point their lights up and see, and they eventually did go around up in there and take a look down from that same vantage point, and they couldn't see anything.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was talking about the splashing, that's what I meant, because there was rocks being kicked down or whatever, and that was splashing in the water, and that got their attention looking around, and then boom, then this thing shows up, and it's talk about creepy. So there you go. I mean, but again, what could possibly be, you think about the movie Predator, having a cloaking device. And that cloaking device, even though that cloaking device is keeping you from seeing the actual predator, would it still cast a shadow if a light was shined on it on a wall behind it?
I don't like this. Is my second Bigfoot show with you. The first time you told me it was a spider crawl. This time you're saying predator. I don't know if I'm missing anything actually by not investigating this stuff. You're just gonna make me frightened to go outside.
Oh, you'll be all right. Just take Matthew with you. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more, and that's not all.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. This little clip that's coming up right here was in another one of my absolute bests, and this one's hard to see because it's blurry. Okay, let me set this up real quick for those of you who have not seen it. This was this 2 years ago, or was this wasn't last? Was this? I think this was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, at least 2.
Russell was setting up with his cameraman across a valley, on the hillside across from a valley, and he was looking across. He had a scope, and he was looking through the scope, and he can put his camera or his phone on it so he can record what he sees in the scope. But he was putting the spotter scope up, and he was looking across the valley on the hillside on the other side, probably half a mile across. I forget.
No, I think he said a mile.
It might have been a mile, across this from one side to the other.
He had a pretty good sized scope.
Yeah, and it was a really good sized scope. Anyway, they were in the daytime. They were setting up for their nighttime experiments, or to do their work at night. And he's watching. He's scanning around, and he sees he says, "Oh, there's a bear over there," because you can see the backside of what looks like a bear. And it looked like it was working on it. He watched it for a while, and he can see its backside. It's facing the other direction, and it looks like it's working on something. And he's talking to his cameraman, and and we're all checking this out. Oh, look at that! That's pretty interesting. It looks like a bear. Well, all of a sudden, it stands up. Now, bears do stand on 2 legs. That's not to say that they don't do that. That we all seen it. It stood up, and then it turned and walked off to the side, to the left. And this was a shot of it walking away. And it was, if I can make the motion, get this thing to move here, you can see it walk away. Now, folks, does that look like a bear walking away? It had arm swing. Bears don't generally have their arms down to their sides and have arm swing. If you see this whole clip, you'll know what I mean. But it was bent. It was down on the back, looking at its backside, and then it stood up and walked away.
And you could even see the lower part of the leg pick up and hit almost 90 degrees, which that's one of the tells that they look for when there's video footage because of Patty. Patty picked up her lower leg to almost 90 degrees to the upper, to the thigh bone. Their lower leg picks up higher, presumably because they're usually going over stuff on the ground in the forest and whatnot. Humans don't walk that way. Humans pick up our leg to about 27 degrees, I think. Thinker Thunker has a YouTube channel, did an excellent demonstration of that, showing that all types of different size people all walk with that lower leg at 27 degrees. And Sasquatch almost always right at 90. That's not easy to fake, to even walk that way. It's not easy to consistently walk that way well. So that's one of the things that the experts, as they say, look for when they're checking a film to see if they think it's real or not.
Yeah. Now, to finish that story off a little bit, Russell was blown away, and so was the camera guy. And so they're like, okay, I don't know if that was Zach or if that was when Zach had left, but anyway, so they gather up their stuff because he says, we got to get over there. So they gather up their stuff. They hike that now down the hill and back up probably 2 miles to get over there. And they get over there and they find the spot. Okay. Now, when they get over there, they find what looked like a flat rock with a bunch of like broken nuts or something on it. And you can see score marks on that flat rock. And then you see another rock that he picks up that looks like it would have been the rock that was used to break those nuts. And there's debris there. There's marks on the flat rock of being struck. And there's the marks on the other small rock, the fist-sized rock, of being struck. Bears don't have thumbs. They can't hold a rock like that and use it for striking and breaking nuts open.
They're not known to use tools.
They're not known to use tools.
If they start using tools, we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's a bad deal.
This is a bad deal.
Yeah. So what the heck was over there using a rock to break nuts up on another flat rock?
Yep.
Was it a guy in a suit and knew Russ was there with his cameraman? I don't know.
Yeah, he was in a really good spot too, because you could see it was bright sunshine, and he was back under the canopy of some trees, back in the darkness. There's no way anybody knew that they were where they were. Yeah. There's no way you could have seen them. If you were out in the sunshine, you can't see back into a tree line like that.
Correct.
I mean, he picked a very strategically good spot, which you would expect being ex-military. So that was a pretty impressive clip.
Yeah, it was. So, well, hopefully we'll get some stuff like that this season, and I think we may. So,
so do they always then make tools out of items that they find? There's not any evidence of them carrying tools with them, because you would think if they'd had contact with indigenous tribes, that they would have learned how to make tools.
So there's some theories out there. So you're kind of getting out into dangerous territory now, Shannon. Way to go. So the Patty film, there are those that have analyzed that video. MK Davis is probably the most well-known. And it appears like there's a string around her body going crosswise across her body. And when you watch her walk, her right arm swings normally. You don't see her left arm swing normally. It's almost like the way you might walk if you had a purse on your left side, protecting it or keeping it from swinging. Her left arm doesn't move past her torso backwards. It goes forward, but when it comes back, it stops. So there's some theories that she had some kind of a satchel or a bag or something like that obviously they would have made, if that's really the case. So there's certainly theories out there that they make things. I mean, they make beds. Obviously, we've seen the nests and things like that. So I don't think there's any reason to say that they're not doing something like that, or they're obviously extremely intelligent. Why wouldn't they be able to weave things together, or would have learned from Native Americans, or maybe they taught the Native Americans? Who knows?
Well,
Yeah,
right.
that's what I was just like, yeah.
I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, that's how a lot of this tool set spread, was through contact with other tribes and things. So it just seems like that would be a natural progression if they had contact. That they would actually have tools. So it makes me wonder, obviously, like, why don't they have the tools with them? Why are they using tools of opportunity rather than planned tools? Does that mean that they spontaneously come, show up or not? Are they trying to stay in survivalist mode because they know, like, that's what my brain's doing right now.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right.
Yep.
Perfect.
Wow. Yeah. Some good questions tonight, Shannon.
Yep.
I'm glad
good questions. You got a little homework to do for next time.
Yep.
Okay.
So get prepared and make sure you watch the next couple
those
episodes. Yeah,
I will.
We're gonna do this some more, folks. We're oh yes, thank you, Linda, for reminding me about that. I was gonna mention that. Yeah, I do have a new website. And we're gonna be adding I had a lady, Sherry Boudreau, up in Canada and Nova Scotia area, and has made revamped my whole website for me, jfree906.com. And we're going to be adding, right now it's a lot of Oak Island stuff on there right now, but we're going to be adding a lot more coming up. It does highlight some different things, and we're going to be adding some other people's already have started with some other people's websites or YouTube channels. We're going to be adding more as we go along, and Bigfoot related, Skinwalker Ranch related, UFO, UAP. Check it out when you get a chance. And if you want to help support the show, you can do it there. You can buy some of the merch that I have, hats and things like that. Got some hoodies coming. You can also, help out by being a patron or just donating to the show through PayPal or any of that kind of stuff too. It does cost to keep this going, and so that's why I mentioned that, because have to thank you. Yeah, there's the PayPal there. Thank you, Linda. But anyway, thanks so much for being here with us tonight, folks. We really do appreciate it so very much. And Shannon, are you going to join us on the next one in a couple weeks?
Sure, I'll do that. if you'll have me back.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
No, as long as I'm not annoying with my questions.
No, not at all. I love it. I think it's great. I really do. And they offer always goes to Matthew as well, because he and I were having some great conversations at the lunch table.
I will extend the invite. He is very funny. He's an actor, so he's used to being in front of the camera, but I think he likes me to have my own space. I think one of these days I might just do a bait and switch, though. He won't realize that he's on the show until it's too late.
Appreciate that.
Until it's too late.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much, folks. And then again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell so you know when we have new content coming out. And if you like what we did for you here tonight on this show, please give us a thumbs up. And with that said, for Shannon and Mike and I, we'll catch you next time right here on the J Free 906 podcast. So good night, everyone.